All right, Michael, we're not going to really hand out any draft grades because that's to be determined later on down the line. But I want you to almost explain to me who you thought did well this weekend based off of their team building and their process. So is there a team that immediately comes to mind when you think about that?
Well, I like what the Giants did because I think whenever you start rebuilding a franchise and you start with the offensive and defensive lines, I think that's the right play. I know that's not popular. I know everybody wants to draft receivers, but I think that's the right play. I mean, as opposed to the Jets, who take two good players, but to me, the Jets run a lot of cover three. They're not a man-to-man team. Maybe they'll change because of the corner that they selected, in Sauce Gardner, and then they take another receiver. They put all this money in Corey Davis. They drafted a receiver in the second. Now they got another receiver. Like at some point, when are they going to fix their right tackle in George Fant? So for me, I'm watching the teams that what I feel like utilize team building the effective way. What's the most important positions? What can't we afford to get in the open market? I mean, you're Atlanta. You've got a really bad team. You can't protect your quarterback. You've already lost one quarterback because he got sacked more than anybody. Meanwhile, you're still drafting receivers. Like at some point, how are we going to get the ball to him? Like where's the art of team building? And I think that's really what you have to judge is, are we building the team in the right manner to where allow us to build a championship level? We know we need a quarterback. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? So that's not hard to figure out. But all the other pieces have to kind of tie together to see what happens. And when you have a glaring hole at offensive line, or when you get sacked as much as Atlanta quarterbacks have, you say, well, how do you do that? Well, you say, well, we drafted Lindstrom in the first round. We drafted McCarry in the first round. We drafted Jake Matthews in the first round. We've spent a lot of resources, but they're not any good.
Yep.
Your quarterback's getting killed. So how do you just because you drafted them there, I think if you're a Giant fan, you have to rejoice that they didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Daniel Jones. You got to celebrate that as like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because the New York Jets, in comparison to the Giants going inside out, Jets going outside in. And I was surprised by that, by the New York Jets brass. I mean, Joe Douglas comes over from the Philadelphia Eagles front office. Robert Saleh, we know his history with pass rush. And Douglas has been an offensive line guy. He always loves those trenches. And the fact that he passed on all the offensive linemen, he even passed on Kayvon Thibodeau, a guy that they were linked to quite a bit throughout the draft process, that surprised me a little bit. And Sauce Gardner, people love him, but for corners to go 3 and 4, I thought it was a little surprising based off of the old linemen that were available on the board at the time.
Me too. If I would have been, to me, if I were Joe Douglas, I would have taken a defensive lineman and an offensive lineman. And I would have just said, okay, for us to beat Buffalo, we got to get Josh Allen on the ground. Look, I love receivers as much. Now he took obviously the edge guy at the bottom of the first, so that gives them a chance to maybe Jermaine Johnson, who they had in the top 10. So he moved up to get him. But to me, if you get Thibodeau, and then if you come back and take another offensive lineman, and now you fix your right tackle position. At 10, well, I don't think there would have been one there. The problem was with Garrett, with Cross gone, the offensive line was kind of, so, but you could have started out by taking an offensive lineman and then come back and take, to me, it was about fixing the two lines. And I think I would have done that more than what they ended up doing. They might get good players. I have a hard time understanding how Seattle takes Richard Sherman in the fifth round overall. San Francisco's really never invested high picks, of top 3 pick. Saleh came from an organization that put all their resources in the defensive line. And that's why they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and guess what the 49ers did with their first pick in the second round? They took another pass rusher, Drake Jackson out of USC. Like, the 49ers have this build of just keep swinging at these rushers to get the quarterbacks down, and Saleh coming from that, it was surprising that he deviated from that path and went with Ahmad Sauce Gardner. Now, Sauce Gardner could turn into an all-pro, but just based off of Saleh's identity and what their philosophy has been, where he came from, it felt like he would go pass rush. The Eagles, I thought, was another interesting draft because they drafted our favorite player, Jordan Davis, there with the 13th overall pick, the guy that people thought that maybe he's just a nose tackle. The Eagles clearly saw more.
They did, and I think what they saw was somebody that they could line up next to Fletcher Cox, line up next to Javon Hargrave, who was outstanding, right? And they still got the kid they drafted in the third round, Milton. I think Milton Johnson Let me just check. Yeah, they still have him over there at left inside. So to me, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl in 2017 because of their defensive front. Milton Williams, the kid's name is. So they did that. They won that because of that, and I think they went back to that. They get Dean, which was a great get for them in the third round. But Dean, I'm told, has a torn pec by some teams. Now, I don't quite understand this because torn pecs are kind of like being pregnant. You either are or you're not, right? You either have a tour or you don't, and so you either got to repair it or you don't. And so obviously a lot of teams had Dean off their board at some point because you can repair it. He's going to come back and play. He just might not play next year. So what, right? So what? If you got a really good player and you wait a year, what do you care for?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the second and third rounds, because I was watching on Friday and I even tweeted, I was like, man, like Nakobe Dean's medicals must be like resemblance of a middle-aged man. Like, why is he falling this far down the board? And there was reports that were coming out in the broadcast saying that, okay, it's this, he didn't get surgery, and teams are concerned about the fact that he didn't get any surgery, which is a curious decision, the fact that he didn't get surgery. Maybe that would have put him out for even longer. He thinks that he can play through this thing and it can heal naturally. But Dean was arguably the best player on one of the best defenses we've ever seen in college football.
No doubt. And they got a hell of a value in the third round, and so he misses a year. Let's put this in perspective. How much playtime do these guys get? I mean, everybody thinks they're winning the Super Bowl today. Everybody thinks they got the best team in the league. They're going to win the Super Bowl. But most of these rookies aren't going to make any immediate impact on the team. Most of them won't. Most of them will learn what to do. I mean, there's not going to be very many Mekhi Parsons that come in the league like he did. They're going to contribute. Their next year, the 2023 year, is going to be the year they got to take the huge leap. And so that's where you'll see the jump. But so like, why not wait a year? If you can get a player like Dean in the third round, to me, it was a good value.
Let's stay in Pennsylvania. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they had the headline pick of the first round with Kenny Pickett, number 20. He falls all the way to them. They get the Pitt alum staying in Pittsburgh. But after that Pickett selection, I thought they made some pretty good picks with the wide receivers. George Pickens out of Georgia, Calvin Austin out of Memphis there. It was Kevin Colbert's last ride as a general manager. He was a little emotional giving his post-draft press conference, but I thought Kevin Colbert left this organization in a pretty good spot with this 2022 draft.
Kevin always does a good job, and I think Kevin does it last year. He took a lot of crap for taking Najee Harris, and so, look, he's taking a chance on Pickett. He comes in there. The guy's got the ability to do a lot of things. Whether he's a starter, I don't see him as a starter. Kevin saw him as a starter. That's obviously where he goes. I don't particularly think that's going to last. But with Trubisky there, I do think that the way Pickett plays, the way Pickett understands football, I think he'll pick it up. He'll compete. I think in his rookie year, he's ready to compete right now. He'll learn the protections. He'll be able to compete. And if Trubisky turns the ball over, I could see them making that move. Long run, I don't, but I have great respect for Kevin, and I think Kevin does a great job. He had a wonderful career there. I've known Kevin since the day I met him at Baylor University in 1985. We were both working out a player down there.
Wow.
And so he's always been a diligent, hard worker. And he understands the art of team building. And, they've done a good job of fixing their receiver room with their coaching. They develop players. What happened, Fem? What happened with – I thought Mike Tomlin loved Malik Willis. I thought he loved him.
They went to dinner together in Mobile, Alabama. We were led to believe there were two peas in a pod.
I thought they loved him.
They must have loved Pickett a little bit more.
Obviously, and then then I was told they love Curtis Strong, and they take the South Dakota quarterback in the last pick of the seventh round. So, I think, should we all remind ourselves next year when we do the pod, don't believe anything come draft time. Like, don't believe anything. Look, we thought Thibodeau. It's interesting. Thibodeau was telling everybody, and everybody at Circa. He had a draft party at Circa. He was telling everybody he was going to Detroit. He was convinced he was going to Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
He was so convinced he was going to Detroit. It was like fait accompli. There's no doubt. And what happened? Detroit took all of about a minute to turn the Hutchinson card in.
We were doing the broadcast together, and I was like looking down. I was like, "Oh, the pick is already in," and it wasted
no time at all.
Like about a minute and a half, I think, to make that decision.
Yeah, they made it was like it was none of it, and so it just, to me, is. I think, to me, it's a commentary on it's too high stakes poker to let information out. You can't really afford to do it. You really can't. So you just have to be able to just block everything out and really focus on what you think the team's going to do in January, and don't let the noise bother you in April.
Which draft did you not like? I mean, you mentioned Atlanta, their process of the team building. They go with Drake London. They're another pass catcher in the top 10. But was there another team that you didn't like? Because I have a team in mind.
Go ahead, you go.
I'm a Justin Fields fan, and I was hoping the Chicago Bears would surround him with some offensive linemen, maybe some wide receivers, and they eventually took a wide receiver. But there are 2 picks in the second round. You get Kyler Gordon, I'm a Washington Husky fan. I watched Kyler Gordon play quite a bit. He's really athletic. I question some of his instincts at cornerback, but super athletic, has a high ceiling. And then they take the Penn State guy, Jaquan Brisker, another really good athlete out of Penn State. But I wanted to see him get an O-lineman. I mean, I don't see how Fields is going to be protected. The receiver they drafted, Velus Jones, I think he might be signing up for an AARP card soon there, 25 years old before the year even starts. Like, I thought the first draft here for Ryan Poles out of Chicago, questionable at best, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, again, we're talking about offensive and defensive linemen. He don't take any of them. He's going to come back with Tevon Jenkins at left tackle. Can he do it? Whitehair at left guard. They signed Lucas Patrick from Green Bay. I mean, Dakota Dozer from Minnesota. And then they got the kid they drafted in the 5th round. I mean, this could be one of the worst offensive lines in football. It could improve. It could improve with coaching, but you're right. I mean, it's not necessarily. And then defensive line, right? So the key to their team was Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack, right? Now Robert Quinn was sensational last year. There's no denying that. Yep. But where are they going to get it? It's going to put a lot of pressure on the coordinator to help it. I mean, are they going to be able to handle the run with Justin Jones and Tonga inside and Blackson? I mean, these guys, are they good enough? We'll see. I agree with you. I think, to me, it gets away from the art of team building. The pick that I thought was hilarious, we talked about this on the Lombardi line. I didn't think it was hilarious. I think it was a reflection of the NFC North, right? So, Cincinnati has all the talk went to Jamar Chase, right? Yep. Great player, all that. But really, at the end of the day, Chase was fabulous, and he made all the plays. But the guy that really got him over the top was Evan McPherson. He didn't miss a kick. He was dynamic, and he was automatic, right? And come playoff time, he truly was Mariano Rivera. He was closing shit out, right?
Yeah.
And so you're the Cleveland Browns. You missed 6 field goals last year inside of the 40-yard line. And you got to play McPherson, and you got to play the great Justin Tucker, who don't miss. They don't miss, right? And so what do you got to do? You got a guy that misses. So you go ahead and spend a 4th-round pick, which I think is the right pick, on Cade York. Now, some people say the difference between a great kicker and a good kicker analytically in the NFL is 1 missed kick or 2. Probably. But when you're in Cleveland, Ohio, and you're kicking with a wind swirling, where it's a problem, and you miss 6 kicks inside of 50-yard line. He made every kick. McLaughlin made every kick outside of 50. He missed 6 inside of 40 to 49. You have to improve. We'll see if York can do it. A Southern kid, but so was McPherson. He was from Florida, and he was able to kick in Cincinnati effectively. I think that's a significant. Now you talk about a guy who can make a difference on a team. There's the guy.
And you think about, Justin Tucker's a Texas guy too. Like, he played in Texas, and somehow those guys have adapted to that AFC North climate. We'll see if Cade York can do the same. Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.